For over 15 years, I sat on the other side of the hiring table at global leaders like Microsoft, IBM, and Amazon. I was part of more than 500 plus hiring decisions across tech, research, specialist, and leadership roles. But here's the twist. Nobody ever sat me down and taught me how to do it well. I learned by doing, by watching other recruiters make calls under real pressure, and by getting it wrong more than once myself, sometimes in front of a hiring manager who did not let me forget it. It cost me years of trial and error, figuring it out on my own without a genuine mentor to guide me. So, starting today, for the next 21 days, I'm sharing with you everything I wish someone had taught me on day one of my career as HR in talent acquisition. Now let us talk about how this craft gets taught. Think about how sales gets taught, or product management. Decades of books, structured training programs, certifications, mentorship paths that are actually designed on purpose. Now think about how most people learn talent acquisition. A tool here, a template there, a hard lesson from a bad hire that nobody ever properly debriefed. There is almost no real structured path into this craft, even though it quietly decides who gets hired at every company in the world, which shapes every team, every product, and every business result that follows from those hires. I have sat in rooms where a hiring manager overruled a recruiter's read on a candidate simply because the recruiter could not articulate their reasoning with a framework or with data, only with a feeling. That is not a talent problem. That is a training gap. And it is the exact gap this series exists to close one day at a time. Now, what do these 21 days actually cover? This is not a highlight reel, and it is not a series of loosely connected tips you will forget by next week. Every single day for 3 weeks, you get one focus lesson, 10 minutes, on one real, specific part of talent acquisition. We move through 5 parts of the craft. In the same order, I teach them live in my own cohort. The foundations of TA, sourcing and AI, advanced sourcing beyond the standard job boards, candidate assessment and employer branding, and stakeholder management. Focus days on each session, so you're not just watching a concept once and forgetting it by the following week. You are living inside it for straight days, long enough for it to change how you work, not just how you think about work. Why daily? And why 10 full minutes? I built this daily on purpose. A daily habit is how a craft sticks, far more than one long video a week that you half remember by the time the next one arrives. And I built each day at a full 10 minutes, not 2 or 3. Because a real skill needs a real explanation, a real worked example, an honest look at the mistake most people make, and a genuine chance to practice it, not just a headline you nod along to and forget an hour later. Where this leads. This series ends on day 21, right as my live program, Strategic AI-Powered TA, opens its next cohort, starting August 1st, 2026. That is not a coincidence. It is the whole design. The program runs for 12 Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. IST, and it is where these 21 days lead if you want to go deeper, live, with direct feedback on your own actual hiring decisions, alongside a small group of people doing the same work. You can find the details in the post below. A word on how to use this series. Do not just watch these passively. Each day ends with one specific action, something small enough to do in the next 10 minutes, applied to a real search you are working on right now. The people who get the most out of this will be the ones doing that small action every day, not just the ones who watched all 21 videos. Before you turn up to watch my next video, do this one thing. Write down, honestly, the one part of hiring you have never been trained on, the part you have been quietly figuring out as you go, hoping nobody notices the gaps. Keep that note somewhere you will see it again, because as we move through these 21 days, I want you checking it off piece by piece against what we cover, who the series is built for. If you are brand new to talent acquisition, this gives you the foundation nobody hands you on day one, the structure that usually takes people 2 or 3 years and sometimes decades of trial and error to piece together on their own. If you are already recruiting, possibly for years already, this gives you specifically the parts of the job that separate a talent executive from a talent strategist, the parts that get you into the room when leadership is deciding headcount and business priorities, rather than being told about those decisions after the fact once they are already final. And if you are somewhere in between, moving from a different function into TA, or moving from a generalist HR role into a more focused recruiting one. This gives you the vocabulary and the frameworks to sound and be credible from your very first week in the new role, instead of quietly catching up for the first year while everyone assumes you already know all of this. What changes for you by day 21? By the end of the series, you will have a specific named answer for each of the 6 life cycle stages, instead of one blurry sense of doing recruiting generally. You will have a Boolean string you have built and refined yourself, not just watched someone else build one. You will know at least 3 sourcing channels beyond the standard job boards that many recruiters overlook, and you will have a written set of screening criteria for at least one role instead of relying purely on instinct. None of this requires natural talent. You either have or do not have. It requires 21 focus days of doing one specific thing differently and then keeping the habit that works. That is the entire promise of this series. Nothing more dramatic than that. And nothing less useful either. The cost of continuing to learn this craft the old way. Consider the cost of the alternative. Continuing to learn this craft entirely through trial and error on live searches, with real candidates and real business outcomes riding on each mistake. Every hiring manager relationship damaged by an overpromised timeline. Every strong candidate lost to a silent process. Every difficult conversation avoided until it became an unavoidable crisis. All of that is expensive. Not just in the outcome of any single search, but in the slow erosion of your own reputation as someone leadership trusts with important decisions. From here, you want a personalized approach of learning with structured teaching. You should definitely invest time that is set against years of learning the same lessons individually. One uncomfortable mistake at a time, the way most people in this profession currently do. That is the entire bet this series is making. And it is the same bet. One more thing worth saying before we start. I'm not going to pretend every day in this series will feel equally exciting. Some days, like today, are about the big picture and the why. Other days, coming up soon, are going to feel almost mechanical. The specific syntax of a search string, the specific structure of a screening rubric. Stay with the mechanical days just as closely as the inspiring ones. Because in this particular craft, the mechanical details are very often where the practical advantage lives, far more than in any big picture inspiration alone. I have seen plenty of recruiters who deeply understand the philosophy of great hiring and still struggle in practice, because they never sat down and built the specific, unglamorous mechanical skills underneath that philosophy. This series is deliberately built to give you both the why and the how in roughly equal measure, precisely so you do not end up in that position yourself a year from now, still inspired but still stuck. The question I hear most often when I describe a series like this is simply, will this actually work for me, given my specific company, my specific market, my specific level of experience? The honest answer is that the frameworks in this series are deliberately built at the level of principle, not at the level of any one specific company's exact process, precisely so they transfer across industries, across seniority levels, and across very different market conditions. The 6 life cycle stages exist, whether you are hiring engineers in a fast-growing startup or hiring specialists inside a large, established enterprise. The discipline of checking market data before promising a timeline matters just as much whether you are sourcing globally or hiring only within one specific city. Come back tomorrow for day 2, the 6 stages every single hire moves through, whether anyone at your company has ever named them or not, and the one stage almost everyone is quietly weakest in without realizing it.